Welcome back to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
And we welcome you back to Talk of the Town for this Monday, October 26th. I'm Gary Stevens. Open line following the 11 o'clock news block. But on this fourth Monday of the month, we are joined by first-term Republican State House Representative Brad Slagh of R-Zeeland Township. He's on the other end of our Zoom connection. Brad, good morning and welcome back to Talk of the Town.
Hey, good morning to you as well. It's a good day, and at least it's not raining today. If we're going to be out doing doors and things like that, it's a great way to have. Cold is one thing. Cold and rain is not so fun.
And it doesn't help the ground game, to use the political term, because we're 8 days from the election. Obviously, you're running for re-election for a second 2-year term. And you got, I don't know what you want to call it, gut feeling or stuff like that. But the Republicans still feel confident they can be able to hold on to the State House?
Yes, sir. I truly believe that we're going to be able to make that happen. And I think that's a good thing for the community as a whole.
But yet there are some concerns. Obviously, the Senate is not up for grabs. The executive branch is still under the Democratic Party. And if the high-profile candidacy of the Chief Justice and one of her Democratic Party friends does get in, it'll make the state Supreme Court Democratic leaning as well. And that could be of concern for the GOP.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. It could, although in some senses, Gary, I think, and you and I've talked about this before, when there's some balance between having folks in one party in the executive branch and the other parties in control of the legislature, there's some balance to that. And so you have to look at what kind of stuff gets passed and how does it work. And I think there's some value in some of that. So I don't want to cast that out, because for me, I think there's value to the populace.
395-1450. If you have a question for State Representative Brad Slagh of R-Zeeland Township, he is one of 3 men who represent the Ottawa County in the State House, along with Jim Lilly of Park Township and Luke Meerman of Coopersville. But if you have a question for Brad, he'll be happy to answer it at 395-1450, 395-1450. I've asked this from some of the other state lawmakers. I'll ask it of you as well. Do you expect a lot of action to go in the state legislature in lame duck once the November election is over? Or because we do have a split situation where you have the Republicans in the legislature and the Democrats in the governor's office, maybe not as much as perhaps earlier years, even though you weren't directly involved?
Yeah, I think that you're exactly right, Gary. With the executive being from the party of the Democrats and the Republicans holding the 2 houses in the legislature, there will be some push to try and move things forward at the end, but I don't think it'll be the same as it's been in other years from a lame duck session.
And won't be as frantic. Let's get to the calls. Good morning. You're on the line with State Representative Brad Slagh.
Yes, good morning. I have a question. Now, Governor Whitmer, her executive orders were deemed as unconstitutional, that they weren't supposed to be held as still ongoing at this point. But then she hands it over to the health department and they say the same thing. Does the health department have the power to carry these through? I thought they did recommendations like for flu shots or all these different, but I didn't know that they had that executive power that they could force people to do some of the things they're asking them to do. Just curious.
All right, let's get the response from Brad.
It's a great question, and one that we don't really think about. When the legislature hands a piece of something, let's just say that they're going to hand off some stuff to the Department of Health and Human Services, that they often with that give them the opportunity to set rules, and those rules have the force of law. So the answer is yes. In this case, the health department has the ability to set rules for masking, not masking, for an amount of serving tables in a restaurant, some of those kinds of things.
All right.
Just
Yeah, go
okay,
ahead.
that doesn't seem right, but if it's not good for one branch, why is it okay for the rest? But hey, it's all political. I understand that. But thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate the call. Thank you. 395-1450, 395-1450. Good morning. You're on the line with State Representative Brad Slagh.
Hey, good morning. I'm not sure if this is the right individual to speak to about this, but I'm going to anyway since he's here. Maybe he can direct me in the right area. 120th between Chicago Drive and Lakewood Boulevard. There's a railroad crossing there, and quite often during rush hours, the railroad track, the company is blocking right of passage through for, quite frankly, more. It happened to me last week for quite over an hour and a half. Is that acceptable? And if it is, why is it? And how can we change this?
All right.
It's difficult.
Yeah. Let me help. And then Brad, you can help me along lines because I've had to answer this question on open line as well. Railroad crossings is federal. It's they're covered by the feds. And they can stop if they are X amount of hours into their run. A lot of times, and I've seen it in Holland, I've seen it in other areas where the train stops because the crew can't work any longer. Federal law. So they have to wait for another crew to come in from Grand Rapids. That holds everything up. Unfortunately, this is something that the feds have to do. And it's something that, let's put it this way, it frustrates the state officials like Brad. It frustrates local officials, such as we've had Keith Van Beek on about this. And it frustrates even the state lawmakers, the Congress people, and Fred Upton's mentioned this too as well. The pressure needs to be put in Congress to change that, to force CSX and other railroad companies to be respectful. And a lot of times they are, but we're talking about an outfit in Chessie in Tampa, Florida, that I don't know really gives 2 cents about what goes on in Holland, Michigan.
And Gary, I'm afraid you're exactly right. It all belongs to the federal side of this, and to CSX or to whatever the train, who owns the tracks and stuff are there.
Yeah, it's frustrating as well. And I certainly agree with you, caller. I certainly agree with you on the being frustrated. Appreciate the call. Thank you. 395-1450, 395-1450. Not only in the delays with the crossings, but also dealing with repairing the crossings. And, we've gotten some repaired in Holland. We've had some repaired in Zeeland Township. Of course, that's where Brad's bailiwick is. Good morning. You're on the line with State Representative Brad Slagh.
Yeah, Representative Slagh. The caller, I think it was 2 ago, the lady was talking about some of the mandates that came from the governor, which were thrown out in the courts, which are now imposed under the health department law. And she had made the reference that it was all political. So can you dispute that or agree with it? Or is it all political what they're doing in the health department with the new mandates? Or is it health-based?
I think there is health base to it. I truly believe that there is, as an example, if you wear a mask, you don't project stuff as far or as much. So can you help to limit the amount of stuff? The answer is yes. If the masks are as good as they say they are, should we have to have social distancing? I don't know. Maybe that's the kind of questions we should be asking rather than just trying to throw the whole thing out. But there is, I'm sure, a political end game as well. So we can't discount that. But I think there is at least in places like Ottawa County, I think our health department works really hard to try and make things better, reasonable, and not just cave to some sort of political pressure. So
that's really, I'll tell you, I didn't vote for you. And now that you said that, that's one more reason I'm glad I didn't vote for you, because just to say that there's political stuff within that you're just kowtowing to kind of all what's going on about with the masks and everything. It's like, you should really back up the health department instead of like saying that. I was hoping you would come out and be clear and say, there's not politics in here. Now we're dealing with the health department who has the legitimate authority to do this. And instead, you're kind of trending back to the political based stuff yourself. So it's just, I think it's a shame. And you could really be an example in leading. And anyway, just kind of a disappointment. So thank you.
Appreciate the call. 395-1450. Before we get to another call, Peg McNichol has a comment or question from the newsroom. Peg?
Hi. So my question, Representative Slagh, is what would be the political immediacy or the political gains for a health department official issuing these kinds of rules? And just so everybody knows, I found the Michigan law that allows health officials to put out these new rules under a epidemic or pandemic situation. But explain so people understand, what is the political benefit in a situation like this?
So the political and benefit might be a struggle for me to try and describe a benefit, but the political realm of this is that the health department director reports directly to the governor. So you could have the ability to create a political thought process because the health department officials report to a specific branch of the government. And so it could happen on either side. I'm not saying this is just a Democratic thing. This is about who does somebody report to, and is there a beholding to that person? And the answer is, I believe there truly is.
So and that's the same kind of concerns people have about the U.S. Attorney General and President Trump because he's a Trump appointee and reports to him. But the real question I'm asking that needs to be very clear, what is the benefit of, in this case, Democrats having the power to issue, say, a mask mandate? What's the political benefit of that?
The political benefit for issuing a mask mandate. There is several possibilities. One possibility would be that if there's a mask mandate, it creates a division of people who think that there is an ability for the health department or the governor to be able to issue that thing, or whether they believe that that is superseding their rights as a citizen to be able to care for their own health. Is it the government's job or is it the person's job to care for their own health? And that is a true division within our understanding of how do we understand our Constitution.
Well, where would you draw the line between managing public health? I mean, we pay our taxes for a public health department, not just at the state level and the federal level, but right here in Ottawa and Allegheny counties. Our taxes are supporting these offices. And aren't we supposed to trust these folks to make wise decisions, to look at the bigger picture outside of my own household or my own workplace and look at the larger scheme of things to manage public health? I mean, isn't that their job?
I agree, it is their job. That isn't, I don't think it's a question about whether it's their job or not. The question is there a political reason or bent to be able to do it? So there's, so the piece for Brad Slagh is that Brad should be responsible for his own health. My job should be, if you can communicate to me that masks are really valuable, Brad should want to wear a mask, and there should be a desire to be able to do things in a way that helps to protect not only Brad Slagh, but the people around him. There's, so it's that kind of a thought process.
Do you feel that wearing a mask is something that public health has convinced you is the right thing to do when you're outside of your office or your household?
They have convinced me that there is benefits to it. They've not convinced me that that we're going to suffer as a community if we don't do it. And the reason that they've not convinced me of that is because they're telling me that this is something that is valuable now, but they've not ever come out and said it was valuable in the past for us to do this. I.e., we had other viruses and things. The flu kills people every year. They've never implemented this kind of thing for that. So it's a concern for me that I believe that there's value, how much value, and how do we do that within our community.
395-1450. Good morning. You're on the line with State Representative Brad Slagh.
Yes, I've been listening, and thanks for your good input there, Brad. The political agenda of the Democrats is the same as when they had the false impeachment trial for President Trump. And there's political agendas on the left, especially right now, going on. And then for this other caller that called 2 times today already, he should have a little more respect for the rules that are going on. And so thank you for your program. I love to listen. It's awesome. Bye.
All right. Thank you very much for the call. 395-1450, 395-1450. Good morning. You're on the line with State Representative Brad Slagh.
Yeah, Brad, I support you. I did vote for you. And for the caller who called in, he seems to be a political activist. I believe he's probably one of these Republicans, so-called Republicans, that can't vote Republican, so they'll vote Democrat, even though Democrats' major push is abortion. And I wonder what the pastor of his church says about abortion. Apparently, his pastor probably isn't politically active, but that doesn't matter. The thing is, I was reading over the weekend several articles where the big media and, of course, our tech giants are suppressing all these studies by epidemiologists and medical experts about the fact that masks really just aren't that effective. So I feel that there's a lot of misinformation there, and I think you're doing a great job, and maybe Peg McNichol will let you talk about some other things and not just her political agenda. Thank you. Bye.
Well, appreciate the call. 395-1450. Good morning. You're on the line with State Representative Brad Slagh.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for taking my call. I was wondering when Brad and the Republicans are going to force the governor to open up the unemployment offices. I have been waiting since June 25 with no compensation from the unemployment agency. And why in the world can you go to your bank and sit across from a plexiglass thing, shield? Why can't you do that in the unemployment office? I'll hang up and listen.
I appreciate the call. Thank you, Brad.
You know what? We have been continuing to ask the governor to open up both, not only the unemployment office, but Social Security or the Secretary of State's office as well. Those places we believe can exactly what you're saying. We can do the plexiglass. We can do concerns for how do you keep people apart? How do you do air filtering? All those kind of things. All of that stuff's available. How do we make this happen so that we can move forward, get people taken care of, so we need to do all of that stuff, and we're pushing really hard to make that happen. If you haven't been able to get to the unemployment agency, though, and you live in my district, or you live in Jim Lilly's district, or you live in Luke Merriman's district, you should be getting a hold of our office. We should be able to help you get someplace. So if you haven't done that, I would encourage you to get a hold of our office directly, and we can help you get there.
Good morning. You're on the line with State Representative Brad Slagh.
Good morning. After reading about the group that came to the city council last week, Wednesday, regarding licenses for illegal immigrants, I noticed you were there, Representative Slagh. So what was interesting to me and deeply concerning was that the city council, within 20 seconds of the group not stopping their chant, that they exited the room. And after I was concerned. So why would you vacate a room when it is your space? Because you encouraged the next group to come in to cause chaos. So I contacted 2 former mayors, and both mayors said they would have called for the police instead of exiting the room. It didn't look like their safety was in danger for them to exit. So to me, in my opinion, they gave that group permission to take over that council chambers. You were there. What did you observe when you were there?
I would agree that what I saw was not violent kind of people. That's not what was going on. They just simply were trying to make a point. And I was surprised that we all exited the room. So I was surprised about that as well. I would have thought, like you, that you would have simply asked for police backup to come in and just help those people exit the room rather than that. But either way, the important thing is that it wasn't violent. There wasn't people hurt. There was somebody got a chance to speak their piece. That happened in the way that the city council took care of it. So it's probably not how I would have done it, but it isn't necessarily negative.
Good. I appreciate your perspective on that. If you were in a meeting in the House chambers and a group started to protest from the balcony area, what would take place in a situation like that?
We have House sergeants on duty, and they would immediately help to remove those folks.
Okay, good to know. Well, thank you for your service, Representative Slagh.
All right, thank you very much for the call. 395-1450. One last call. Good morning. You're on the line with State Representative Brad Slagh.
Hi. I know you're state representative, but is there in any township a law that says you must have your political signs 25 feet apart or 25 feet from the roadway? Because someone came by here and measured where my signs were, and they said, oh, you're all okay. But then I thought, well, then the night before last, they all disappeared, along with a couple that were along the roadway from someone else's home and right next door. So I'm wondering if there is such a law, and is it from the roadway or is it apart? Because I'm noticing all kinds of signs that are 25 feet apart.
Yep.
A lot of people don't have that big a yard.
Yeah,
is that the truth, or was that?
Let me get a quick answer because we're out of time for the segment. Brad?
So the answer is that townships can have ordinances about signage and where they place it. Typically, it's not your prerogative to put it in the road right of way, which is 33 feet from the center line. So anything 33 feet from the center line and in should be something that isn't legal to put out there. If people take care of signs, normally the road commission doesn't have a problem with that, using that road right away. But it is something that is determined by the local municipality.
Brad Slagh, State Representative, thank you very much for joining us today, answering our questions. Let's do this again next month if all goes well.
Look forward to doing it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brad Slagh, 99.7 and 1450 WHTC.